Yo, what's going on everybody? It's You May Be Seated here. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. There's an interaction with the bump settings and the physics that's not healthy for the game at all. I'm going to demonstrate the impact of increasing bumps slowly, incrementally, without changing anything else about my setup. As you can see, we're starting at 1-1. This is just going to be our baseline. For all the testing we did, I used the 1992 MK2, and we're in E-Class on Maple Valley Short in Rivals. I chose this track for two reasons. One, I'm very consistent at it. I hold the world record in D-Class and C-Class. And the other reason being, I haven't done this track in E-Class, so I get to race against my Ghost each time I increase the bump setting and show you guys a comparison. Alright, we have our baseline lap at 48.1 using 1-1 bump. Now we're going to bump up to 3-3. We're going to fast forward again. There's not much to see with the 3-3. There was a little bit of improvement, but nothing crazy and nothing to complain about yet. Bear with me because things do start to get crazy. Alright, so we improved from a 48.1 to a 48.0, and then this first turn here, I'm a whole tenth ahead of my Ghost, but I end up messing up on the final turn. So I put the optimal time for a 3-3 at 47.9. So we're already 2/10 up on our baseline lap, just going from 1-1 to 3-3 bump. Alright, now we're going to bump up to 5-5. Another reason I chose E-Class and this car specifically is in E-Class this has skinny front tires. I think they're only 195, and because of that the issues that come with running high bump are exaggerated sooner rather than later. Two laps in and we were already beating the 3-3 Ghost, and I could feel the car turning better. It just took a couple laps to get used to the new turn radius. Lap 3 we put down a much cleaner lap. We did get a little skittish on the final turn, but we still end up finishing the lap with a 47.8, and I put an optimal time of 47.7. Earlier in the video I said with the skinny front tires some of the volatility might show up early. I did not expect it to show up at 5.5, but this car not turning right here is because it has skinny front tires and I'm running high bump. 5.5 I didn't expect to be high bump, but it'll get much worse. With each change we've already improved our time by 2/10, so we're going to try 7.5 now. It didn't take long at all to notice the extra grip, and we lay down a decent lap here. We finished this lap with a 47.6, and it definitely could have been a 47.5. So we put the optimal for 7.5 at 47.5. I started to experience more of the volatility at 7.5, and when I did experience it, it was getting worse than it was at 5.5. We're only at 7.5 bump, and we're already 6/10 up on our baseline on a lap that's less than a minute. And you're already having to ask yourself, is it worth trading a couple tenths for a car that doesn't always do what you want? As we bump up to 9.9, remember the brake distance of 231. Immediately we could feel the added grip in turn 1. And because we're at 9.9 in a car that can't handle high bump very well, as soon as I hit the brakes I noticed the front end didn't want to turn in at all, and I have a rear brake bias. So the volatility at 9.9 is starting to get even worse. We keep nailing turn 1 and then experiencing volatility in the other turns. Right here we even experience it in turn 2, which in E-Class you should never have to slow down for. It was getting to the point with this car at 9.9 bump that I was unable to run a clean lap for the longest time. I finally got an okay lap right here. Definitely not the potential the car can run with 9.9. I finished this lap with a 47.4, but it can definitely run a 47.2. We're going to move on to 11.11, and remember I said watch the brake distance. We went from 231 to 209. There's something really weird with bump and squat paired together and certain brake biases that just drop your brake distance by sometimes up to like 100 feet. But that's a whole nother issue to itself. And we're starting to reach a point where the pace is just so much faster than the baseline. We're over a second faster than our baseline, and we haven't really experienced much of the volatility yet, but believe me, it comes. And with 11.11 bump, we run a 46.7, and I left that as the optimal because I don't think there's much more room. And here's our first moment of volatility. I paused it out of habit because I'm used to just restarting when that happens. But imagine that happens in a real race and your car just understeers that hard and there's an opponent right on the side of your car, door to door. You're probably going to end up with a bunch of penalties if you try to run setups like this. Here's another example, and this time I let off the throttle, and you just see how much time I lost compared to my Ghost. So you have a car that can run 46.7 and then randomly lock up and lose a whole second in a single turn. And some of you are probably thinking, just don't run your bump that high. And you might be right. But remember, our 5.5 time was 47.7 and our 11.11 is 46.7. So even the difference between 5.5 and 11.11 is a full second on a track that's less than a minute long. Now think about how many seconds you could potentially gain on a longer track. And it seems like those first couple laps we got pretty lucky because after that I was struggling to run any consistent laps. And that's the reason we're making this video. Why is somebody forced to choose between the most obvious pace advantage but at a cost, or a consistent car that doesn't affect other drivers around you but is much slower than the potential of somebody running high bump? And here's another example of a turn where you should never even have to slow down, and sometimes the car will still wash out on you and you just go flying out into the sand. But there's 11.11. Our optimal time and fastest lap was 46.7. Now let's go to 13.13. Immediately we ran into a ton of volatility. We pretty much couldn't get a clean lap for 10-15 laps. This car is built to exaggerate some of this volatility, but even with cars that function okay with like 11 bump, when you go to 13.13, it's almost always a nightmare. And this lap was only one of 2 laps that I ran in like 15 laps where I was able to beat my 11.11 Ghost. And it wasn't because the 11.11 Ghost was faster, it was because the 13.13 car was undrivable. And it's just sad for rivals and leaderboards when they're cluttered with people running setups like this that barely work, but when they do work, they're way faster than like an ordinary consistent setup. And when you're somebody like me who likes doing leaderboard grinding and rivals more than racing online, it's beyond frustrating to have to make these setups all set to compete with the other people who are using them. And most of the actual fastest guys in the game just refuse to participate in this, so they don't even get to put times on the leaderboard. And that also sucks for me because I want to compete against the fastest guys. But anyways, this lap that we're watching, I just decided I was tired of trying to run a clean lap on 13.13 with this car. So just for the sake of the video, I just started rewinding until I got each turn without messing up. Like it's still not a perfect lap, but it's a complete lap. With just that rewind lap, we ran a point 0.4. I put the optimal as a 46.3, but it might even be able to do a point 0.2. I just was fed up with the car. And we'll just take a quick peek at the leaderboard before we review all the optimal times. We are 71st. We could have been top 30. Um, wow. We are the only car that's not a P550 in the top 100. But that's a whole separate issue. But I made a chart with all the optimal times for each bump setting that we did. We started with 1.1 at 48.1 and final 13.13 had potential for a 46.3, maybe even a point 0.2. So almost 2 seconds on a 40-second track. Even without the volatility, it's unacceptable for a single tuning metric to provide that much potential pace. But then when you factor in the volatility, it just becomes this toxic balancing act of how much consistency are you willing to sacrifice for ridiculous pace. That trade-off turns people in the community against each other. It turns teammates against each other. Some are willing to use it, some don't want to use it. Some that don't use it get angry at the ones who do use it, and people start fighting about it. It just needs to be removed from the game. Like cap bump at, I would say 5.5, honestly. Like I can't think of a reason other than the ridiculous pace of why you would want bump higher than 5. Just drop it to 5 and call it a day. The leaderboards would need to be reset, but I'm sure most of the community would love for the leaderboards to be reset and bump to be dropped so everyone can compete on a non-toxic level playing field. I honestly hope this video reaches a developer somehow. It's not likely, but for those watching that aren't developers, I will have a link in the description to the forum that I posted on the Forza forums. It's already been getting pretty good traction, but if you haven't seen it, just click on the link, and at the top of the discussion, there's a vote button. And the more votes that gets, the more likely it is for a developer to see it and weigh in on it. That's going to wrap things up, and thank you to everyone who stuck around this long in the video. Hopefully this issue gets resolved in the future. Whether it's by the efforts of this video or not, I don't care. I just hope the issue gets resolved.